Hello, and welcome back for some more Mechyard survival. In the last episode, we were working on this new advanced walker and building a docking station for him. And as you can see, last time we got as far as building a roof and making the basics of a docking clamp rotating platform system. And I put the rotor in place on which we are going to build the docking computer for this system. And for the rest of this episode, we will be building that docking computer. But first, I would like to say a quick thank you to my YouTube members, and to our returning member 613 Kojak, welcome back dude, and to our latest member Golden Finch, thank you very much for your support, it is greatly appreciated. Okay then, so we can have a look at putting together this docking computer. And we need to work out exactly what kind of actions all the different parts are going to take. So, if I take control of our scrap warrior, if I walk him into the center of our platform, we can have a little run through of everything we need to do with him. So, what's going to happen is the hinges and pistons will push our mech into the center of the platform. And the mag plates will lock down. And then once all the mag plates are locked down, the whole platform will rotate around. And then once it has rotated around, the arm will deploy, and we need to set up a whole bunch of controls for this. So all those hinges will open up, it'll come to there, then that piston will extend, and then we can put a sensor on there to make it stop just as it gets to the mech and prevent this from happening here. But that's pretty much it. So we just need to figure out a way to automate all of that now. So if we move him back out the way again, we can do a little bit of work. So, the first thing we're going to do with this docking computer is we are going to put a timer right in the middle, and that's going to be part of the start of this docking sequence. And then we're going to stick an action relay on the end of it, so that our mech can remotely trigger the whole thing. And we'll quickly get that welded up before it gets buried. And we'll name this timer Scrap Warrior Bay 01 Stage 1. And for now, this can just be Scrap Warrior Bay 01 Docking Relay. And next we need to build a whole bunch of lights. So we'll have a couple at the side. And we'll have a whole bunch across the top and bottom. And then we can weld up all of these lights. And these lights are going to act as both switches for the various stages in our docking system, and they're also going to act as visual indicators of what stage in the docking system we are at. So I'm going to quickly set them all up with their names and some flashing sequences so they look pretty. So the first one is going to be the on and off switch for the entire docking system. The second light is going to do the pistons on and off. The next one will do the platform hinges. And then we'll have the platform mag plates. And then we'll have the platform rotor. Then we'll have a light to control the arm hinges up there. And then we'll have a light to activate the arm piston and make it extend and retract. And then finally we'll have a light to control the docking connector. And so as each stage of the docking system progresses, another one of these lights will light up, and then we'll end up with this pretty little rotating light pattern at the end. And then the next thing we need to do is build an event controller that corresponds to each one of these lights. And it's this event controller that is going to turn everything on and off. And then we'll quickly weld all of these back up. And so we'll do the same thing with these controllers that we did with the lights, and we will name them all accordingly. So the first one will be controller docking on and off, to go with the docking on and off light. The next controller will be platform pistons. Then we'll have platform hinges, and then platform mag plates, and then platform rotor. Then at the top we have arm hinges, and then we have controller arm piston, and then finally we have the arm connector. And if we head back over to our control panel, we can have a look at setting these controllers up. So we've got everything named and sorted out and ready to go. So everything is labelled for the Scrap Warrior Bay number 1. And the first controller we've got is the arm connector. And all of these controllers are all going to be set to the block switched on and off setting. And then we just have to match up the corresponding light. So arm connector light. And then when that turns on and off, it will lock the connector and it will unlock the connector. And then for the arm hinges controller, we will have the arm hinges light. And so the arm hinges controller is going to operate the arm hinges. And so when this light turns on, the first hinge will be set to 4 RPM and -4 RPM. The second hinge will get set to -6 and +6, and the third hinge will be 8 and -8. We can give that light a little test to see if it works properly. Turn it on. That all unfolds correctly. Turn it back off. It all retracts nicely. Fantastic. And then we've got the arm piston controller, which will be the arm piston light. And then this arm piston, when the light turns on, we are going to set the velocity to 0.5, so it extends nice and slowly. And when the light turns off, we are going to set the velocity to -0.5, so it retracts nice and slowly. Quickly give both of those a little test. That extends. That extends. Fantastic. Right, we will fold those back up again. And that's all the bits we need to do for the actual arm. The docking bay on and off we will leave because there's a few more timers that we need to build first. But we can set up the platform controls. So for the platform hinges controller, we will get the platform hinges light. And then when the docking platform hinges light turns on, it will set the velocity on those hinges to 2 RPM, and when it turns off, it will set it to -2 RPM. And then for the mag plate controller, we can select the mag plate light. And all that needs to do is lock and unlock the mag plates. And then for the platform pistons, we shall select the platform pistons light, and we can just make those extend and retract. And then the final one of these controllers, platform rotor light, And for this one, we will set it to 2 RPM when it turns on, and -2 when it turns off. So if I chop down this temporary button panel and replace it with a helm, it will be easier to do a bit of testing. And so then we can go through a little dry run of the docking sequence before we program any more bits. So the first light will turn the whole system on, but we need to build timers for that bit yet, so we don't need to worry about that. Second one will push the pistons in. Third one will bring the hinges round and grab our mech. And then once that is done, we will lock the mag plates, but there's nothing to lock to right now, so we don't need to worry about that. And then once it is all secure and locked down, we will rotate the entire platform around so that the docking port on the back of the mech is facing towards the docking arm. And then when that finally makes its way around, we can then engage the hinges on the docking arm, and then we'll engage the piston, and then the whole thing will lock down. And at the end of that, we'll have a nice pretty pattern of rotating lights and hopefully a securely locked, recharging and refueling mech. So we'll turn all of these bits off and we will make a start on the actual staging controls. But quickly before we go any further, I just want to add a few blocks around this computer to make sure that it doesn't cause us any problems later on. Fantastic, we'll get those welded up and then we can continue with the computer. And the next thing we need to build for this docking system is 4 more event controllers to act as the various stages of the docking system. And then we'll quickly weld these up and name them. So we'll have controller stage 1, controller stage 2, controller stage 3, and controller stage 4. And we'll also need a couple of timers to stop and start the entire sequence. And they can be named Scrap Warrior Docking On and Scrap Warrior Docking Off. So if we head back over to the helm, we can sort out this next set of controls. And in the docking on timer, we will turn the platform light pistons on and the platform light hinges on. And we will also activate the stage 4 controller. And we will also turn off the sensor that I almost forgot about. And then if we head to our docking off timer, we can turn off all of the arm lights, and then we can turn off all of the platform lights. And that should reset everything back to normal. And then we can turn on the platform sensor. And now if we head over to our stage 1 controller, we can set it to the rotor hinge angle event. We will set the threshold to 89 degrees. And then we can select all of our platform hinges. And then we can select our stage 1 timer and turn it on, and then we can select our stage 1 timer and press start. Now if we go to our controller stage 2, we can set it to the landing gear lock-unlock setting. And we can select all of our mag plates. And then we can select the platform rotor light and turn it on. And then in our controller stage 3, we can select the rotor hinge angle. We will set the threshold to 179 degrees so that it stops just before it reaches the end. And then we can set it to look at the docking platform rotor. And then when that rotor gets all the way around, it will turn on the arm light hinges and it will turn on the arm light pistons. And then in controller stage 4, we can select the connector ready idle setting. We can set it to look at the connector on the docking arm. And when that connector is ready to lock, we will set the docking arm piston to 0 velocity. And we will reset the velocity on all of the docking arm hinges. And we will also turn on the light for the docking arm connector. And now we can go to the platform sensor that I almost forgot about. And when that sensor stops detecting something, we will set it to turn the platform rotor light off. And then we can go to our stage 1 timer and get that set up. And when that timer triggers, it is going to turn on the light for the mag plates, and then it is going to turn itself off again. And finally, last thing we need to do is to take our docking relay for this docking platform. We will set it to 41, because I think that's how many signals I've been using now. And when that relay gets triggered, it will turn the docking platform on and off light on and off. And as luck would have it, I have forgotten to put a relay on this mech, so I think I'm going to slightly readjust some bits so I don't have to have one just sticking out on a weird angle. In fact, before I grind that all the way, copy all the settings. We'll take that antenna out of there. We will replace it with a relay. And then we'll get this relay welded up. And we'll just build the antenna there, stick out the back instead. And now that we've got all of those bits sorted out, we can finally set up the docking on and off controller. So this will be block switched on and off. And this controller will be looking at the docking on and off light. And in the first slot of this event controller, we will have the docking off timer turn off and the docking on timer turn off. Then we will have on turn on, off turn on, and then we will trigger on and we will trigger off. And that should create a nice safe on-off switch for the docking mode. So in theory, all of that should hopefully work. So we take control of our scrap warrior, and then we send the signal. The pistons and hinges push it into the center. It's looking good. Then it locks down, and then it starts rotating. That's looking pretty good too. And then as it makes its way around, hopefully that docking arm will deploy, and hopefully it will lock down correctly. We'll see what happens. Right, here we go, moment of truth. There goes the docking arm. And it is locked. Fantastic. Right. We have a nice little docking system. Fantastic. Cool. Right, well, that's the basics of the controls. So all we need to do now, really, is pretty this up and add a few bells and whistles and lights and signs and things. Cool. Well then, we should be able to unlock him and move him out of the way and get everything else started then. Fantastic. There we go. As he leaves the platform, the sensor stops detecting him and it rotates the platform back to its default position, ready for him to come back again. Groovy. Everything is working properly. Well then, that would appear to be the docking controls set up and functioning properly. Everything seems to be doing what it should be doing. There's still a few bits and pieces in the new Scrap Warrior that we need to sort out, like his docking and launching controls, but we also need to put a few other things in place before we do that. We kind of need to finish off the building and any sort of greebling that's going to be in there and potentially in his way. And we actually need to give him a patrol route around the area for him to walk around, and then when his battery low controller kicks in, he will actually have a route to come back to. So, first thing we're going to do is we are going to do a bit more work on this little building, get this sorted out and looking how it should, and then we'll get him programmed, and then we can put all the pieces together and see if it works. So let's get rid of this controller, and then we can start doing some more building. Okay then, that's a basic little setup for now. So we will move the Scrap Warrior out of the way a little bit more, and then we can get in there with the squid and weld it all up. Right, well, it looks like the squid has run out of a few bits, so what are we missing? Steel, construction components, glass, tubes, glass, construction components, steel. Yeah, steel, glass, construction components, and large tubes. Right, we'll head back to base and we'll just grab a little bit of everything. Right then, I have stuck in a whole bunch of extra bits and pieces. Hopefully that will be enough for what we want to do. And we'll head back over there and finish this thing off. Right, there's still some small steel tubes missing from those doors. Hopefully there's some in this container over here. Yes, there is. Thank you. Do that bit ourselves. That's the rest of that door done. Those are the only bits that we're missing, and there's a bunch of missing blocks in here, obviously. Alright, I'll quickly get these welded up. And that is everything in here welded up nicely. So, we're going to add a few blocks to the back of this. We'll have one of those there. We'll have one of those there. And I might do something like that as well. Cool. Right, we'll weld that up. Yeah, that's a little bit more protected. Happy with that. And I think for a bit of interior lighting, we might have one of the new floodlight blocks up there. We'll get some bulletproof glass for it in a minute. Works at least. Now I'm looking at it, I think I need to change that doorway to match the scrapwalker ones over there. I think he's going to be a little bit tall and maybe catch on that doorway. So let's remodel a bit. I'm going to chop these down. And then I'm going to rebuild them facing this way instead. those blocks there. We're going to need to take this one out as well, I think. Then we're going to have a pair of the 2x1s either side. That way he's got a little bit more height to get through that door. So I'll quickly weld these up. And there we go, that looks a little bit nicer. Right, on to the next bit. And that's a bit of the roof that we forgot to do, so let's quickly throw some blocks in there. Probably forgot on the other side as well. Yes, I have. Right, weld them up. And I also want to build the pylon type thing that I had on top of the scrap walker recharging bays. So I'm gonna have to do some. I have to make some changes up here, I think. And for a start, I think I'm gonna move that light that was in here. Put that somewhere else. Because I want a gap here. And in there, I want to stick one of these corridor sections. Ah, missing interior plate, obviously. Let's get some of that. And then from there, I want to build the little mounting point to put the pylons on. So we'll have a couple of beam blocks. And we can't get a cylindrical column in the gap like I want to, so what we're going to have to do is grab some of the armor panels instead. I'll have one there. One there. In fact, do a little pattern with them. And then we'll get that welded. And then I quickly need to go and recharge, so I'll be back in a second. And then we can take some of these half catwalk pieces, put them in the side. And now that they are welded up, we should have a connection point in this gap now. Fantastic. Cool, so we stick that there. Weld that up. And then we can stick one exhaust pipe on the top. And we should be able to squeeze one in there. Yeah, just like that. And I'll go get the parts for that. And then we'll quickly get these bits named up. And then I want to put an armor panel across there. And I want to get another grill in there. And for the light, we might be able to get away with putting it there. Looks like it might be about the right angle. Oh yeah, still need bulletproof glass. Yeah, pretty spot on. And I'm not too sure what to do with these two gaps down here. I've ended up refining this computer down to slightly fewer blocks than what I normally would. Oh, that's not going to fit in there. Okay. Well, we might just put some inset LCD panels in there for the moment. Maybe make some signs for this thing. And we still need bulletproof glass. We haven't got any over here. I'll have to go back to the main base at some point. And we also need to add a few more blocks in here. So we're going to have another action relay on there, which is going to alert the station that the docking sequence is about to engage. And then the one down there actually engages the docking sequence. And then we'll have a few more cylindrical columns with a few more exhausts on the end of them. And then we're going to have a couple of sound blocks on the side of that. So we've got alarms to let us know when the docking sequence is engaged and disengaged. So we'll quickly weld all this stuff up as well. And then we're also going to stick a couple of rotating lights on the outside of the building. And we'll set that one up to be green to indicate that the batteries on the mech are full and it's about to launch again. And then we'll set this one to orange to indicate that the mech is low on power and he is coming back in. Cool, right. That's a few more bits. Okay, so we've got these exhaust pipes. Now, the two large ones on top, I want to set them to the electrical arc. So they look like that when they're charging. And you can see from a bit of a distance that there is some electrical things going on inside. And then the two smaller ones I'm going to set to smoke and electric arc small. So they kick out some sparks and stuff like that when they're engaged. And then we'll make a group for all of these exhaust pipes. And we'll add them into the ARM connector controller. So when the connector is connected, they will turn on. And when it's disconnected, they will turn off. And then with these two sound blocks, what we're going to do is have a couple of alarms set on them. So for the docking start alarm, we'll get that sound to indicate that the mech is coming back in. And then when he is locked back up to the docking port, it'll play that sound to indicate he has safely locked. So when this docking sequence engages, we will turn on the battery low light and we will play the dock start alarm. And if we go back to our ARM docking port controller, when it locks down and connects up, we will also play the docking end alarm so that we know that it's finally locked down safely. Right then, we should be in a good place to give it a little bit of a test. So if we jump back into the Scrap Warriors controls, and we'll walk him up into place. And now if we engage that docking sequence, there goes the alarm, there goes all the pistons, the light is turned on, the hinges have moved round, the mag plates have locked, which has triggered the rotor turning. And as the rotor spins round, hopefully that arm will kick into gear. And then it should set off all of the exhaust pipes as well. There goes the arm. Locked down. there goes the alarm, and there go the exhaust pipes. Fantastic. The docking sequence works. Okie dokie then, so we have got most of the basic bits and pieces that I need for this docking station. We still need to pipe the docking arm up to an actual source of fuel and ammunition. And there's a few little greebles and things that we need to tweak. We've also got to set up all of the AI controls properly on the mech itself. So we will do all that stuff when we come back next time. So thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.